And fellas, we're recording this on Sunday night, the first Sunday of NFL football, but the big breaking story, we got to get into. We normally catch up here, and I guess we're going to use this catch-up portion to talk a little bit about the whole situation in East Lansing and Coach Tucker. I mean, talk about waking up to a shocker when I'm scanning my phone and I go, what in the hell? What were your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, well, it was one of those things. I was working the Auburn Cal game last night. So, over there on the West Coast, 10:30 kickoff.
Oh, boy.
We didn't get out until, 2 o'clock or something, whatever. So, during a commercial break in the fourth quarter, I hop on Twitter, see maybe what else is going on in the college football world. Did not expect to see the few tweets that I was starting to see about Mel Tucker. Talk about, you talk about, news organizations dropping bombshells on a Friday heading into a weekend, trying to bury the lead. Saturday at 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
USA Today and ESPN dropped these stories. It was just kind of what the hell? I showed the few people I was working with. I was like, dude, look at this stuff. And we were all like, what? Even the producers were like, should we mention this? And they were like, no, let's we're in the fourth quarter of our game. No need to mention this. But anyway, so yeah, for anyone that doesn't see it, a lot of allegations right now. Obviously there's a lot of investigations and trials and stuff that is going to go on with Mel Tucker, but he's suspended without pay right now because of a lot of sexual assault allegations, again, like I said, and it's not looking good for him because, like I said, it's suspended without pay means that there's obviously a lot of smoke to the story. So they're letting it play out in court. They obviously want to dot their I's, cross their T's type of thing, but it doesn't look like he's going to be back on the sidelines, at least for Michigan State, anytime soon.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look that way. I mean, what a bizarre 24 hours. And here's the thing. Before, we're probably not going to talk much about Michigan State X's and O's on the field, even though it's such a big week coming up against Washington. Yeah. I thought this team was really moving in the right direction. I think their quarterback Noah Kim has really been good. I thought they maybe could pull off an upset this week against Washington. They still might be able to, even though this is a huge distraction. And maybe that's the biggest bummer is just this guy who was supposed to be kind of this quote unquote, savior. They paid him, $90 million. He comes in. It's almost been embarrassment after embarrassment since he's been there outside of a Kenneth Walker, transfer in. If that doesn't happen, who knows what the Mel Tucker era even looks like, if he even makes it this far. But what a just weird, terrible, sad story that just, it's scary knowing that he is kind of a leader of young men. Mm-hmm. It's just, it makes you as we're all Michigan fans, but we all like Michigan State, man. We don't want him to be this kind of laughing stock isn't the right word, but this kind of embarrassment when it comes to these sort of things that keep on happening, man, since the Nassar thing. I mean, I remember going to a Michigan State March Madness or Midnight Madness event when I was 10, 11 years old. And all of a sudden a banner gets dropped on my head and it's accusing the players of, rape or whatever the heck the accusation was at that time. And that was in 2010. That was when I was 10 years old. So it's just been a nonstop negative spotlight on this great university for a long, long time now. And it's just a total debacle. And regardless of how you feel, whether, Tucker broke any rules or not, flat out, he looks horrible in this situation. The university looks horrible as a result. And regardless of what you think, I think his days are done. I think the whole suspension thing is more so just they're trying to get out of this buyout more than anything. Right. But I think he basically might as well have been fired today.
Yeah, I mean, a really good comment there, Jared, because a lot of people that listen to this podcast might think a couple are haters of Michigan State. And we're not. And so, I'm not. I mean, from my perspective, Michigan State University has been, right at the forefront since I was a little kid starting to watch football from the days of the mid-'60s with, Bubba and Webster and Duffy Doherty. Brad Van Pelt played over at MSU. You know how I stand with Izzo. I mean, if it's against Michigan, I'm leaning to Michigan, but anytime else, I'm Michigan State to win all the way. And this has really been a disappointing, I don't know what you would call it, 20 years, with this stuff. I mean, they're bringing in D'Antonio, and I think that's a good move. But remember, his program wasn't totally clean when it came to this stuff. And it makes you wonder, the administration over at Michigan State, what goes on. And, and I'm not going to point specific fingers, but, the trustees, the presidents of the university, the different athletic directors have been in there. I mean, what in the hell is happening? We're just looking at this latest Tucker scandal, which it's a he said, she said right now, but there apparently is enough information for the university to make the move. I mean, I was telling you off air. I mean, I read this entire USA Today report. It was as thorough as can be. And, it's her side of the story. Let's make sure we're clear on that. And everything's still allegations, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And from her perspective and everything that was laid out in that article, Michigan State had no choice but to do what they did today. And I guess the big question that I'm seeing all over social media, and I agree with it, what the hell has taken so long for them to really bring this out and bring it to the forefront? Why did he get to coach 2 games so far? What the hell is going on over there?
Yeah, and to be fair, though, it's a lot of allegations, and that USA Today is mostly from her side, but he did admit to a lot of it, which brought on the suspension and the whole lawsuit and everything. So it's not 100% he said, she said.
True.
He did admit to a lot of it. The reports are saying that at least in July, but maybe even all the way back to December, they knew about this stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, because this stuff becomes public, now they're going to suspend him. So that's basically what you're saying, Ted. Like, obviously you do want to see how some things play out. If all of a sudden some accusations happen, you're not just going to be like, boom, suspend him, fire him, whatever. You want to let, the legal process play out, of course. But when it was as deep as it was, as you basically laid out right there, it's insane to me that they let him, kind of like what Jared was saying, like he's a leader of this team. He's supposed to be forming these young men into, upstanding citizens and stuff like that, and being an example and everything. And you have to think he's as far from that as what you would want. As much as people, Michigan State fans or other fans of schools or, media can hate on Jim Harbaugh for maybe a little bit of a quirky character as he is, at least everything we can see from the outside looking in, he sure seems to be doing things the right way as far as trying to stand up for his players and trying to, be an example for them to be, upstanding citizens, good young men once they graduate from Michigan and all that kind of stuff. And it just seems like Mel Tucker, I don't know what happened. If it was something like he got a little in over his head, maybe the power went to his head a little bit, getting $100 million contract and basically everything given to him by the Michigan State University. Maybe, the greed got to him a little bit. You started seeing him on sidelines of NBA games and at professional UFC fights and boxing matches. And there's nothing wrong with that. Should be enjoying his life, of course. But, Jared, you've talked about the Instagram posts before with recruits and, a bunch of other stuff that just seemed a little off, I don't know, for a head coach at a big program like Michigan State. And now it's kind of coming to fruition that he clearly, things went sideways for him. And, you brought up Mark D'Antonio, and, he's the best coach probably ever at Michigan State. Yeah. He's one of the best in the history of the Big Ten, but he doesn't have a squeaky clean resume either. I mean, he had a lot of his players go through some legal stuff too. No program is squeaky clean, if we're being honest. But it's not like he's like this perfect coach with a clean track record. So my thing with bringing him back, I understand the fan base and some of the people in the administration probably do want to bring him back in because of the coach that he was for him. To me, when there's all this Nassar stuff went down and some of these other things they've gone through, like what they do, they brought Engler in, and that was just a train wreck. And they, it was like a good old boys club type of thing when they're trying to go through this stuff. I almost feel like you need to just go completely outside of MSU. You need to get anyone who has any ties to any of this stuff away from the program, because it just seems like if you bring D'Antonio back in, hopefully he can right the ship. But who's to say like some of this stuff doesn't keep going and he brings some of the guys back from, like you said, the last 15, 20 years when it was kind of messy. And I know Izzo is up on a pedestal higher than the Empire State Building in East Lansing. He doesn't have a squeaky clean resume either. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on with his players. Jared talked about that banner that dropped on his head, and, we don't have to get into all that stuff. So it's one of those things that it's sad because you think about the parents and, sending your kids away to play for these coaches for, the next 3, 4, 5 years, basically supposed to be teaching them the right and wrong and getting them ready for life after school. And then stuff like this happens. So if he gets fired, there's like a 30-day window for the players of Michigan State that they can transfer, basically like with no backlash, because, like if your coach that recruited you gets fired, you can bounce. If he gets fired, and there's no telling what happens to that roster, they might be down to walk-ons, who knows? Or they might rally. Maybe D'Antonio will get them to rally. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I get what you're saying about, D'Antonio. Maybe it's time to just kind of wipe the slate clean with a new regime, just top to bottom almost, like administration, head coach, people that are overseeing the program, kind of like D'Antonio has been. But I think you do need him to come in and like kind of stabilize the ship. Yes, he wasn't a perfect, in terms of everything that went on in the locker room and all that sort of stuff. Like you said, no program is, but he wasn't doing dumb and weird and creepy things like Mel Tucker was. So at least we can make that separation where he's not the idiot that Mel Tucker was, which even if you say, this was clearly some sort of kind of relationship with Tucker and, the accuser, basically, between these text messages and the numerous different phone calls they had. But just to try and kind of spark this sort of whatever it was relationship with, I think her name was Brenda. Is that correct? Yeah. Brenda, who's coming in to speak, Brenda Tracy, who's coming in to speak to the team about, rape and all the things that she's been through, to kind of view this situation as Mel Tucker trying to, like, I don't know, pounce or whatever you want to call it. It just was weird and off-putting. And it just makes you see those cigar videos, the Ferrari pictures, the riding around in the slingshot on campus. It makes that look even worse. But we don't even need to get into that, man. It's just time to move forward. The suspension, thank God this hearing is coming up, October 5th. We don't have to wait freaking forever for it. It's not like it's going to be at the end of the year. The decision has been made. He's out. And it's just a matter of time before they come to that officially. But Alan Haller, who was kind of the main guy leading the charge to hire Mel Tucker before he became athletic director, to me, man, this whole debacle has shown he's in way over his head. And that's what Graham Couch said. Yeah. Not Graham Couch, excuse me. Mick McCabe tweeted that out. And I agree with it 100%. What more do you need to see of this guy in terms of leadership? It's time for a new direction. Like you said, Matt, maybe wipe the whole slate clean. Administration, head coaches, everything. Hit the reset button after this year because it's been ugly.
Yeah, Haller's got to go too. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. And, you know me, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to betting, but I'm betting. I'd bet every bit of money that I have that Tucker will be fired. I mean, there's no getting out of this. I mean, it's a done deal. And it's sad to see because we've talked about, Michigan State, the players and the families. What happens now? What are your guys' gut feeling? Are they going to rally maybe for this Washington game as a team, but then kind of fall apart? Or are they going to be able to pull it together and put some sort of season together now that they've got the new interim coach and D'Antonio helping out? This could go one of two ways, right?
Yeah, I think maybe the Washington game, they might be able to rally and pick up a crazy W because it seems like, at least judging by, what you see on social media, on Twitter, the fans are going to rally around the players because kind of like what you guys are saying, the fans have nothing, or sorry, the players have nothing to do with this. This is a Mel Tucker issue. So I've seen a lot of, people on Twitter saying, us fans, we need to rally around this team. We need to show up to Spartan Stadium. If we want to if we don't want to go into a 5-6 year rebuild, we need to rally around these players and try and get them all not to transfer. So yeah, they might be able to rally a little bit, but part of it too is, I know, Jared, you were saying it looked like they were maybe figuring some stuff out. Their roster wasn't very good to begin with. They were going to struggle for 5-6 wins this year anyway. So if now they're losing their head coach, and especially if a few players transfer, I mean, we might be looking at another, season without a bowl for Michigan State. So, I already said what I think. I think bringing D'Antonio back's a bad idea. I get what you guys are saying, because what he did establish, he rebuilt that program. I mean, Ted, you remember as well as anyone, that program was almost in shambles with like John L. Smith and some of those previous coaches.
Yeah, so Tucker's now passed him as worst Michigan State coach ever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, wipe that 11-win Kenneth Walker season out the window. Right. I think it's one of those things where, like, if you keep if you keep bringing back the same people, what's going to change? That's just my thing. Like, we've laid it out how ugly it's been for 15, 20 years or whatever. And I've seen people even saying, like, you need to make Izzo the AD and do all this stuff. And I'm just like, I get y'all basically worship Tom Izzo, but he should not be the athletic director. Maybe when he's done coaching, but let's not act like this guy is like a deity and he's done nothing wrong. I understand Spartan fans. I mean, they bow at his feet basically, but
I don't think it's that far-fetched. I don't think it is.
I mean, I guess, but you see a lot of, I remember some stories down here in the SEC when former coaches go to become athletic directors and they can't separate themselves. So I don't know, it might go
That's
well,
true.
but
I don't. No, it's time for Mr. Outside Hire, as they would say in the office. It's time for, I don't know, you go and get somebody who's clearly a great athletic director. I don't know, Ward Manuel or something. Give him an offer he can't refuse. Maybe some of this money you would have paid to Mel Tucker, and you just hit the reset and you go back to square one. In terms of your question, Ted, I think I was maybe more so impressed with Michigan State these first 2 weeks than you guys were. I thought this is a team that was going to kind of exceed expectations. I thought maybe it's an 8-win team. And I've been telling people I thought they were going to upset Washington this week. I don't know about that anymore. You don't know, like you said, you don't know what team you're going to get. You're either going to get, the super inspired, playing with their hair on fire team, or you're going to get a team that's going to lose by 40 because their minds have been on other things all week. I don't know. I will say, coming into the Michigan game, I would have much rather have played a Mel Tucker coach team than a D'Antonio team. I don't care if D'Antonio has barely any say in what's going on. There's something about him on those sidelines that immediately gives Michigan State a boost against Michigan. It's almost like Jim Harbaugh, how he's figured out how to beat Ohio State and Ryan Day. D'Antonio has always had that. So that makes me a little bit nervous in that sense, but it's just depressing. I mean, how much would we rather just be talking about, a great upcoming game against Washington, 2 unbeaten teams, Penix Jr. coming to town, 5 o'clock start. It's just a bummer that that's not what we're going to see.
Yeah.